For more than 3 years, the world has watched a war that has changed borders, politics, economies, and millions of lives. Russia began this invasion with the expectation of quick victory, a swift collapse of Ukrainian resistance, rapid capture of territory, and a negotiated settlement that favored Moscow. But today, in late 2025, the landscape is different from what many imagined. Ukraine's military leadership has publicly confirmed that Russia's 2025 offensive, planned as a major strategic breakthrough, did not achieve its goals. Many analysts describe it as one of the most significant failures for Russia since the beginning of the war. In this video, we dive into what happened, why Russia could not achieve what it planned, what this failure means for the future, and why the conflict is far from over. In early 2025, Russia launched what it called a decisive summer offensive. The goal was clear: capture remaining parts of Donetsk, push deeper into the Kharkiv and Sumy regions, and establish territorial control strong enough to force Ukraine into concessions. Moscow expected major breakthroughs that would change the momentum of war. Units were mobilized, resources were poured in, and offensives were launched across multiple fronts. Many around the world believed that Ukraine, exhausted and stretched, might finally lose ground. But the results were far from what Russia hoped. Ukrainian resistance remained solid and organized. Western analysts closely tracking the front lines noted that Russia's advances were minimal despite heavy deployment. Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky announced publicly that Russia had failed to meet its strategic goals in 2025. The planned push for Pokrovsk and Donetsk did not succeed. Buffer zones in Kharkiv and Sumy failed to materialize. What was expected to be a large territorial breakthrough instead turned into a grinding, high-casualty campaign with little to show. Instead of sweeping tank movements and fast armored advances, Russian troops resorted to repeated small-scale infantry assaults, often described by Ukrainian sources as 1,000 cuts. Groups of 4 to 6 soldiers were sent repeatedly to try and break Ukrainian defenses. The result was slow, bloody, exhausting warfare. Russia gained meters, not miles. Reports from researchers monitoring the conflict noted that the total territorial gain in this period was tiny. In some assessments, almost insignificant compared to the scale of manpower and weaponry used. Independent analysts, including those tracking satellite-verified frontline movements, stated that Russia's massive effort translated into almost no strategic change. A war expected to shift decisively instead remained locked in positional trench-based combat, resembling the slow attrition wars of the past. However, calling the offensive a failure does not mean the war itself has ended, nor does it suggest that Russia is defeated. Analysts warn that Russia still maintains firepower, manpower, and long-range strike capacity. While the offensive fell short, the conflict continues to be deadly and unpredictable. Ukraine's defenses held, but at a tremendous cost in lives, resources, and infrastructure. Entire towns remain under threat. Some regions still see intense clashes. Drone strikes, missile attacks, and cross-border shelling have continued even after the offensive stalled. Civilian areas are still hit. Power grids, water lines, and apartment blocks remain vulnerable. The war's failure for Russia may be strategic, but the suffering of people on the ground has not stopped. And that is what makes this war far from over. This Russian failure also reveals something important about modern warfare. Many expected fast battles driven by technology and overwhelming power. Instead, 2025 showed a war of trenches, mud, drones, and grinding attrition. Ukraine has shown resilience through defense lines, tactical adaptation, intelligence-assisted targeting, and effective use of Western-supplied systems. Russia, though powerful, faced difficulties in coordinating large assaults. Losses were heavy, ammunition consumption was extreme, and logistics were strained. The initial expectations of domination collapsed into slow, costly military pressure. In many ways, Russia's 2025 offensive transformed into proof of military limits rather than strength. And yet, here is the reality. A failed offensive does not mean a failed war. Russia still controls territory. Russia still has weapons. Russia still launches strikes on cities. This war is now a test of endurance rather than speed. Ukraine's announcement of Russian failure is a milestone, not an ending. For Ukraine, this outcome buys time. Time to reorganize, rebuild defensive lines, request more international support, and strengthen its long-term position. But time itself comes at a price. Prolonged war means continued damage to the economy, infrastructure, and civilian life. For both countries, the human cost continues to rise. For Russia, the failed offensive is a political and military setback. It challenges the narrative of unstoppable power. It exposes the strain on manpower and strategy. It pushes the Kremlin toward alternative methods: drones, missiles, long-range pressure, cyber warfare, and strategic exhaustion. Instead of blitz offensives, the war may now evolve into destabilization and attrition. Analysts predict the coming phases may include increased aerial attacks rather than large ground assaults. Grinding warfare replaces breakthrough warfare. Both sides prepare for a long road rather than a short one. And for the world, the implications are vast. Europe continues to adjust defense policies. NATO expands readiness. Global alliances shift. Energy markets fluctuate. Humanitarian needs rise. Every failure and advance reshapes geopolitics. The war no longer affects only Ukraine and Russia. It affects food supply chains, fuel pricing, trade routes, and diplomatic balance. A failed offensive is not a contained event. It sends ripples across continents and into the future. So what does this moment truly mean? In simple words, Russia tried to break through, but could not. Ukraine defended its ground and prevented collapse. But the war is still active. The suffering continues, and the next chapters remain unwritten. History may one day look back at 2025 as the turning point where Russia's momentum broke, but it cannot yet be seen as the end. The battlefield still burns. Soldiers still fight. Civilians still run to shelters. Families still wait for peace. The military failure is confirmed, but peace is not yet achieved. Imagine a soldier on the front line today. Mud on boots, cold wind on skin, drones buzzing faintly above. On one side, Russia battles to gain inches. On the other, Ukraine holds for its homeland. This is no longer about swift victory. It is about survival, endurance, and will. The world watches. Analysts debate. But in trenches, only determination matters. As you watch this video from the comfort of your home, remember, behind every headline, families tremble at night. Behind every failed offensive, lives are lost. Behind every strategic decision, cities are broken. This war, though slowed, continues to shape our generation. The failure of Russia's offensive is a significant moment, but not the conclusion. It is a reminder that power is not only in force, but in resistance. Ukraine résisted. Russia pushed and stumbled. But the storm has not passed. The future of Eastern Europe, and perhaps global stability, still hangs in uncertainty. So as you reflect on what you have heard today, ask yourself, what comes next? Peace talks, a renewal d'offensive, a shift in global strategy, or years more of grinding conflict? No one can say with certainty. But one fact stands firm. 2025 proved that the war is not one-sided, not predictable, and not near an easy end. Russia failed to secure decisive victory. Ukraine held firm, and the world watched history shift one more inch. If you learned something new from this analysis, if this helped you understand the war beyond headlines, then I invite you to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay connected as we continue to uncover the realities behind the world's most defining conflicts. The story is still unfolding, and we must watch it with awareness, empathy, and truth.